Hello, everybody. I'm Howie Hawkins, and I was the Green Party candidate and the Socialist Party candidate for president in 2020. And this podcast, Green Socialist Notes, is about continuing to educate and advocate for the eco-socialist program that my running mate Angela Walker and I ran on in 2020. And there's a lot of news to discuss, but let's discuss current events with our guest, Barry Bendar, who's the Green candidate for Congress in New Jersey's 4th District. And before I let Barry take it away, I just got a few comments I got to make. First thing is, Netanyahu and the Israelis just blew away the Hamas leader, Ismail Haniyeh, that they were negotiating, supposedly, for a ceasefire and prisoner exchange. And it just shows that Netanyahu wants a wider war. He needs it to stay in power and avoid jail for bribery and other corruption he faces. And the polls in Israel show he's he's even more unpopular than our presidential candidates. Wow. And it's clear Netanyahu is trying to start a war with Iran and draw the United States into it. And my thinking is Iran is smart enough not to take the bait. They're weakened by the sanctions. They don't need a big war with Israel and the U.S., so they're going to do some symbolic response, and they're just not going to get themselves get dragged into a war. But if there is a war, I don't think the U.S. is smart enough not to take the bait, whether it's Biden, Harris, or Trump. And this was another occasion, this assassination, on which the U.S. should have said, okay, that's it. We're not going to be suckers anymore. We're cutting off the military aid to Israel until we get this ceasefire and prisoner exchange. And Israel starts moving away from apartheid and occupation, and they start engaging seriously in a political dialogue toward a political accord with the Palestinians. But don't hold your breath for that. This is what we should be demanding. And that's why we need the Green Party, because at this point, there's no indication that Harris, although she's said things with more empathy for the Palestinians, any indication there'll be a change in policy. That's it. I think Harris is going to landslide Trump, or she should. I mean, she's articulate and energetic, and her base, the Democratic Party base, was demoralized. Now they're energetic and enthusiastic, and Trump has been showing himself to be as bumbling as Biden and way outside the mainstream when he tries to say anything about what he's going to do. So all Harris needs to do for a landslide is to keep highlighting abortion rights and put forward a few pro-working class economic reforms, easy ones, like raising that miserable $7.25 an hour minimum wage, and labor law reform so unions can organize, expand the child tax credit, higher taxes on corporations and billionaires. These are popular positions. That's how she could win those the blue wall, they call it, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And if the Democrats can't beat this Trump, he's a terrible candidate. He's got his core base of maybe 30%, but beyond that, people are voting for him because they want lower taxes, or they're just hereditary Republicans. They don't really like the guy. So, that's a very different situation than we were in a few weeks ago. And then the other thing I want to say is the Olympics are going on. And for some joy in these dangerous times, I've been watching it. And, I'm a track guy, and track got started yesterday. Unfortunately, today, my favorite track athlete of all time, the ageless Jamaican sprinter Shelly Ann Fraser-Price, withdrew from the 100-meter semifinals today. She ran a good time yesterday in the heats and must have had an injury. I'm sorry to see her go, but I'll enjoy the track. But I have to say, I was once again in total awe of Simone Biles. This 4'8" dynamo. She won the all-round gymnastics gold. She probably wins some other golds. She won the team gold with the U.S. team. But her floor exercise, it's hard to believe your eyes. She soared 12 feet in the air on that. That's 2 feet above the rim in a basketball, the basketball rim. The NBA should bring her to the next dunk contest, and she'd win hands down. She'd do some flips and twists, and still dunk it and be above the rim. So anyway, I've enjoyed watching that, but given all the negative stuff in the world, that's been a joy. So anyway, Barry, let's get to you and your campaign in New Jersey, 4th Congressional District, the New Jersey Greens. They call them the Green 13. You've got a congressional district in a candidate in every congressional district. So tell us about yourself and your campaign and what's going on in New Jersey.
Absolutely. Thank you, Howie. Well, my name's Barry Bendar. I live in a township called Lacey Township. The particular town is called Forked River, home of the oldest nuclear generating station in the United States, Oyster Creek Nuclear Generating Station, which is in the process of being decommissioned, which we're nervous about anyway. But I'll talk about our district here because I'll have something to say about that a little later on. 4th Congressional District was redistricted, gerrymandered up to protect the existing congressman, whose name is Chris Smith, who's been in Congress over 44 years, which to begin with is ridiculous. But it's been redistricted so that it's safe for him. They redistrict me out of a district that was a semi-safe Democratic district for who then was Congressman Andy Kim, who now is running for New Jersey Senate here in New Jersey. But here in Congressional District 4, it's pretty much the Jersey Shore. We run from Ocean County up through Monmouth County, and all of them are along the coastline. Again, I'm running as part of the Green 13. As Howie said, we have a congressional candidate in each of the 12 congressional districts here in New Jersey, along with a Senate candidate. And we just got our presidential candidate, Jill Stein, on the ballot. So we will have a straight line starting at president and going all the way through Congress in every congressional district here in New Jersey. So wherever you live, you'll be able to vote for a Green. Here in Congressional District 4, they refer to New Jersey as a blue state, but when you get outside of the cities in New Jersey, it turns extremely red. I live in a very, very red district. As I said, Chris Smith has been reelected more or less in this same district for 44 years. He's extremely conservative, right-wing, and I think the people are hopefully waking up and seeing that his policies are not really what's best for them. What we're stressing, and most of the Green 13 are stressing, is number one, ceasefire in Gaza. That's number one. Women, children, innocent people are being murdered every single day, and we live by the value of every human life is important. And what's going on? We're waiting to hear some of the other politicians on the other side use the word that needs to be used, and that word is genocide. And that's what's going on in Gaza, and it needs to be stopped. We need to withhold any funding to Israel until they stop the genocide and sit down and really talk. As Howie said, they're talking to a person, having talks with someone to have a ceasefire, and then they kill the person. How does that make any sense at all? I mean, if they were really serious about it, we wouldn't be seeing things like that going on. Another big ticket item here in the Garden State is single-payer health care. The quality of health care in the United States, people like to walk around saying we have the best health care in the world. I don't know how they can possibly believe that. You know, if they believe that, I got a bridge for them, because everyone that I see and everyone that I know, anything to do with healthcare, it's in a horrible state. Single payer healthcare makes sure people are covered, all people are covered. And here in New Jersey, it can be related to a lot of issues throughout the state that are some federal, some non-federal. But property taxes here in New Jersey are in a horrid state. People pay enormous amounts of money in property taxes, and that affects their ability to stay in the state. Where I live, the town committee here likes to talk about, well, we have to raise your taxes again because we're raising your property taxes because it costs us more to insure the people who work for the town because healthcare costs are going up. Well, here's the deal. You go single payer healthcare, okay, and that's eliminated from a cost in your property taxes. So maybe you can cut our property taxes in half. And they talk about how they want to promote small business. Well, you go single payer healthcare, and every small business now doesn't have to worry about insuring their employees. They can spend more money on hiring more employees or paying their employees better also. So these are the two big ticket items here in New Jersey. But in Congressional District 4, as I mentioned, it's an extremely red state, I should say district. And one of the things I'm going to be pushing for with federal funds is improving transportation. Where I live here in Ocean County, if you're a senior and they tell you that you can't drive anymore unless you have a good friend or you live in a retirement community where there's transportation, you'll starve because there is no public transportation when you get south of a certain point here in Ocean County. So people who cannot drive anymore are beholden to someone else for them to go out and get food. So they're stuck. So what I like to talk about is we have many federal highways that run through New Jersey, along with the Garden State Parkway and the New Jersey Turnpike. And a solution to the issue of those people would be small transportation centers that would run off the major highways. And down the major highways, down the middle of each major highway, the building of a monorail to transport people to the little hubs. And then they would take their little hubs to go wherever they want. And even locally, it would assist them in transportation to a grocery store, to a doctor, to wherever. Again, transportation in New Jersey. If you've ever driven in New Jersey, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the traffic situation, the number of cars, the carbon that's produced sitting in traffic is horrible, which adds to a problem here that we have in Congressional District 4, and that's the rise of the ocean and the bay. We have homes here in my town, in Lacey Township now, that used to have 20, 30 yards of land between them and the bay. Well, the situation now is every time there's a storm, they're getting water from the bay washing up against the back of their homes. And it's very frightening. These people, if nothing is done, these people are going to lose their homes within 5 to 7 years. And the water continues to rise. And the Republican leadership here locally is basically ignoring the issue. And we're jumping up and down about that, but thus far haven't gotten very far. But as far as Congressional District 4, most of it is the shore. And as everyone knows, with what's going on with the environment, with too much carbon in the environment, and it may be past the point of no return for all I know, but the water's rising, and those McMansions that they've built along the shore are now being threatened. So a big push is going to be for correct projects to help fix the problem. And it won't be a permanent fix because the water is going to continue to rise. But it can buy some years for people who live along the shore. And right now, what they're doing, the Republican leadership is using hard structuring, which doesn't work. So we're pushing that also. So again, part of my campaign is going to be 44 years is a long time to be in Congress. We need fresh ideas. We need new ideas. We need to look at New Jersey and what New Jersey needs instead of, falling back on old conservative standard bearer terms and ideas and move forward. And that's why I'm running. And as I mentioned, I'm part of the Green 13. And we're looking to make history here with some of us breaking through and getting elected and serving in Washington, D.C. starting January 1st.
I've been in your district back in the 90s. I was down there with the Greens locally and the anti-nuclear movement protesting Oyster Creek, which is already an old, decrepit nuke. Mm-hmm. Had similar problems to one we have up here near Syracuse called 9 Mile 1. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was so old, the pipes are getting brittle and it had cracks in key structures. And is it closed down and being decommissioned, or is it?
It's closed. It's closed, and they're in the process of decommissioning. But I have another story for you. Okay, my town, Lacey Township, has always been in one congressional district. This time, when they redistrict, they took a tiny little piece of Lacey Township and put it in Congressional District 2, which is Jeff Van Drew, who was a Democrat who now has sworn his loyalty to Donald Trump. But my problem is this, okay? What's in that tiny little piece? Guess what's in the tiny little piece? I mean, you know what I'm talking about here. They took Oyster Creek and put it in a different congressional district. And my belief is this. Chris Smith has been in Congress for 44 years. He outdates the political boss named George Norcross, who runs New Jersey. Okay, so he really doesn't answer to the political boss. The guy down in Congressional District 2, Jeff Van Drew, even though he's a Republican and sworn his loyalty to Donald Trump, is still a follower, if you will, or a sub. He reports to George Norcross. Let's put it that way, okay? And George Norcross, to let you know, sits on the board of the company that's doing the decommissioning of Oyster Creek Nuclear Generating Station. Lots of people here are not comfortable with that. Just wanted to share the story.
So how is the Democrat? I mean, are the Democrats seriously backing the Democrat, or is
no. In Ocean County, and speaking from experience, in Ocean County, the Democratic chairman reports to the Republican chairman. Okay, and I can give evidence of that if people want it. He reports to the Republican chairman. The Republican chairman will get better about New Jersey. The Republican chairman is a political boss. His name is George Gilmore. He was convicted of tax evasion and sentenced to a year and a day in prison. On his last day in office, our good friend Donald Trump pardoned George Gilmore. Well, here in New Jersey, it's a one-party system because the Democratic governor reappointed George Gilmore to be the head of the Board of Elections here in Ocean County. So I am so glad that I'm a Green. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know it. New Jersey's had a Green state legislator, and
Yes,
that was someone elected as a Democrat, but they got so disgusted at the crooks he was working with, he joined the Green Party.
Yeah, and then when he ran for re-election, he lost, which is the sad thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
But at least he was principled.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like you're the only serious opposition. Is the media giving you serious treatment? How's that going?
Not yet, but I've been working, as I've mentioned, on I'm the elections chairman for the Green Party in New Jersey, and I've been working full-time plus on making sure we had the signatures in and everything was on board so that Jill Stein would be at the top of that ticket with the rest of us. And we just accomplished that actually. Friday was the cutoff at 4 p.m. and we've gotten word that she's on, and there were no challenges, which surprised me because when we got the Green 13 on there, which we had to do at the beginning of June, there were no challenges there either. So I don't know whether I should be nervous or not. I don't know what that's about.
It may be they just hope if they challenge you, it would give you attention. So what they're hoping is nobody even knows you're running. That's where the media will be big.
Yeah, we're gonna be getting on that. Let's put it this way. I refer to it as the switch is flipped. It's campaign time for everybody, and we're going to get moving for sure. Absolutely.
Good luck. I see that we just put in the chat your website. Mm-hmm. So I hope people will go there and make a contribution to Barry's campaign so he can maybe get some paid advertising. The media always appreciates that. If you're a paid customer,
yes, they do.
Say, well, okay, let's give this guy some news.
Yep.
So, yeah, and I found, particularly at the congressional district level and down, if you cultivate relations with journalists and give them good stories, interesting stuff, you get covered because they're trying to sell newspapers, so give them a reason to attract readers.
We've got a couple of news providers have covered the Green 13, but we need a lot more. We need a lot more because this is the first time, I think, ever that we've had a congressional candidate in every congressional district here in New Jersey. So it's a first that way.
And that's a story in itself. I mean, that's something you can tell the media and
push.
Absolutely. Let them ask you questions about that. Have good answers.
Yep.
So Chris just put, we have a media guide from the Green Socialist Organizing Project, which, you might want to take a look at. Has some suggestions.
Yep.
In the chat.
Get the chat.
So why don't we go to some questions? I see we've got a few.
All right.
Andrew Hager, Barry, are there any oyster reefs within your general area? If not, why don't you plant some there to help with your rising tides?
Okay, I'll let you know. Here in Lacey Township, they have done a project off one area, which is the area I was talking about, where the water is rising, where they put HESCO baskets with rock to attenuate the wave action, and they were going to seed it with oysters so that it would build an oyster reef there. But my understanding, what I'm getting, and I have to see the report, is that they're failing at getting the oysters to seed there on that reef. And again, I need to get more of the science as to why. But I think something to do with not the action of the waves, but the water itself. You have to understand the water where they're doing this was the outtake from Oyster Creek Nuclear Generating Station, and it was for years since 1969 artificially warmed by the warm water that was put out by that nuclear power plant. So there may be more that has to be done. I don't know what they're going to do with that. That was $1 million project to begin with, and it's kind of sad that we're hearing this kind of results from it. As far as the wave attenuation, it's not doing as much as they had expected it to do. So we have an issue there. We have homes where they put hard structuring on half of the shoreline. And as a result of that, because there's a private, if you will, beach club that's at the southern half, and the hard structuring is helping speed up the erosion of that area that is not hard structured. So it's a very crazy situation. But yeah, oysters would also help clean the water. That's what they were talking about here. But again, the initial report is that they're having problems getting the seeding of the oysters to go inside those HESCO baskets.
So waiting for another question to pop up. There we go. Frankie Lee. Hey, Barry, what changes do you think you can make to things Republicans control?
Well, part of the problem in my town is that people vote for letters and not for people. I've run, 5 times for town council here and come close a couple times, but have never broken through because people just look at a letter and they vote down at a letter. There are things going on now, for instance, where in my town, an edict was put out by a developer who sits on the town committee saying that any property that the town owns needs to be sold, and we need to get businesses there to increase our tax ratables, which they've already pretty much changed the entire town, bringing in big box stores on a 2-lane highway that will never be expanded. But what they're doing now, and people are very unhappy about this, there's a piece of property right in the center of town where the main drag, Lacey Road, meets Route 9. There are 2 historic buildings there. They sold that property. And you know what? If the person who bought it wants to, he can knock down these 2 historic buildings, and the plan is that he's going to put up a quick check, which really is, I don't know if it'll wake people up or not. I'm hoping that the people wake up soon because obviously those that they've elected are not looking out for the people's behalf if you're voting just for a letter.
Oh, here we go. Chris Blankenhorn. The regional mass transit that connects to the main public transit hubs is talked about too little. As someone who grew up in a rural area, those public transit connections are needed. But the logistics is different from the big city. We had a congressional candidate in Illinois that made regional light rail a big part of their campaign.
Yeah, and that's I've put out that a monorail down the Garden State Parkway, a monorail in the middle of the New Jersey Turnpike, a monorail on all of our federal highways, Route 195, 287, because the congestion, the traffic, and even at the local level, people where I live can't go 3 miles to the grocery store unless they walk. If they take their license away, there's one bus that runs up and down Route 9, and that's it. Unless you can make your way to Toms River, which is 15, 20 minutes north of where I live, there's a little hub there. And if they wanted to, because there is a rail line that runs through New Jersey, the North Jersey coastline, it ends at just south of Point Pleasant, and there's no rail. So you have to go south to Atlantic City or north to the town called Bayhead to get on a rail. If they ran a light rail line from the bus station in Toms River, people would be able to take the train to New York City, or they ran light rail down to AC, people be able to take a light rail down to Atlantic City and go across to Philadelphia and get to the major cities. But New Jersey is as far as mass transportation, unless you're up in the very northern part of the state, it's a vast wasteland here. It's really a wasteland when it comes to public transportation.
It's a wasteland in northern New Jersey. I've been to cities known for their traffic jams, like Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles and Chicago, particularly I-80 and I-80, I-90 combined. And you go past Gary to South Chicago, and sometimes that can be a parking lot. But New Jersey, every time I go into northern New Jersey, I've got lost. It's hard to make a U-turn. They got these, I don't know what they call them, but you got to turn right and then come around, wait for a
jug handle. You talking about a jug handle, Howie?
Yeah.
Is that strictly a New Jersey thing?
I've never seen it. I've seen them elsewhere, but they're everywhere in New Jersey.
Yes.
I mean, and I get lost and I get stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
I spoke at a marijuana legalization demonstration in Manhattan. Maybe this was 2018 when I was running for governor. And then I was supposed to speak to the New Jersey State Convention, Green Party Convention that evening. So I left the demonstration like 11 a.m. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get to the convention until like 8 p.m. after it was over. So I did have dinner with some of y'all, but I was stuck in northern New Jersey, and it was a parking lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, New Jersey needs mass transit, including northern New Jersey.
Right. And,
Chris is right. You got to have transit networks in the rural areas that link to the more traveled areas.
Yep.
If you're going to have a serious public transportation system, and we don't, and it's a shame. Back in the early part of the 20th century, and behind me is, if you look at that map, can I point to it?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. This is hard to do.
I see it.
Yeah, this
to the left of your H2O. Yeah,
that's a trolley map from 1903 in Syracuse, New York. And at that time, everywhere, every house was no more than 2 blocks from a trolley. And the trolleys ran every 15 minutes. And, at that time, then they had light rail going between the towns and small cities upstate.
Yep.
So when I was running for governor, maybe 2010, I had a supporter who was in his 90s, and he kept writing me letters saying, you got to get back the light rails, because as a working class kid from the lower east side of Manhattan, he used to be able to travel all over New York on light rails between cities and trolleys in cities and even towns. That was affordable for, a working class person in those days. And you read like about the Socialist Party conventions in the early part of the 20th century. They didn't fly. They took trains and light rails and trolleys. And we had a better transportation system 100 years ago than we do today.
Absolutely.
Because we just got taken over by the auto industry.
Absolutely. But so, I have an idea. Okay. when I go to Washington, D.C. on January 1st, I take part of that close to $1 trillion that's going to the military industrial complex and put it towards infrastructure and transportation for the people of the United States. How would that work?
Be a good investment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Create more jobs per dollar spent too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. For sure.
Andrew Hager. So Barry, you're probably not as enthusiastic about advanced steam technology or perfecting e-coal, but I couldn't help wondering if you're open to experimenting with carbon cutbacks in such fields.
Well, renewable energy is number one. People are talking about new nuclear, and I'm sorry, I'm dead set against that, because as long as I live here and as long as my children live here and their children and about 100 generations down, the spent fuel rods from that nuclear power plant will be sitting right where they are along 2-lane Route 9. So if there is a disaster here, being a mile away probably is a good thing, because I'm not going to feel anything. But nuclear, as long as it creates waste that will be radioactive for thousands and thousands of years, I'm against nuclear. The coal and whatever, we know that the oceans are rising, and our bay here, Barnegat Bay, is rising due to the warming of the environment, due to the carbon that's being put into the air. So to me, that's, that needs to be cut like to zero. And again, as I mentioned earlier, in New Jersey, the governor said something about 2030 cutting to a certain point. That's probably going to be too late. We're right on the edge now of being at the point of no return. So unless drastic measures are taken, the whole planet's in trouble. And again, there's things we can control here, but overseas, okay, there are people that are still using, the carbon-based fuels to do everything. And unless everybody in the world wakes up, there's going to be a lot more swimming going on. This is my opinion. So that's where I'm at on that.
So Andrew writes in the chat, the reason I brought up steam is simple. Howie will tell you I'm a rail enthusiast who loves steam locomotives and wish to upgrade them to give off much less carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide too, and ash than usual. And of course, I've answered Andrew, except maybe for some niche, tourist steam locomotives here and there, we really got to electrify the rails.
Yeah.
Which we did, to get the northern line through the Rockies in Idaho. This is back 110, 20 years ago. They used hydro electric generated to power lines that then fed electric locomotives, which were more powerful than they're all electric locomotives. The steam generates electricity for the locomotive, but it was more power that way than even using coal to generate the electricity back in those days. So it's a really powerful technology, and we've known how to do it for a long time. So, we got to electrify rails and roads. I mean, electric vehicles, electric trucks. That's where we need to go. Because you're right, the carbon climate crisis is, we can't wait. We got
a teetering point. Yeah, it's at
yeah.
the point.
And I'd just add to what you said about the toxic waste of nuclear power. In terms of that source of electricity, it's too expensive. You can get a lot more electric power from solar and wind for the same investment, and it's too slow. I mean, they take on a schedule that is on time, which they never are, a decade to build one of these nukes. And if they go for the smaller modular nukes, which have been around for 75 years, they weren't implemented because they're not economic. They're less. There's more investment per amount of electricity you generate because they're smaller units.
Yeah.
So that just makes no sense. And I have to say, I'm discouraged. There's discussion of some of the planks that will be discussed at the Green National Convention in a couple of weeks. And I see somebody saying we need to take another look at nuclear. And I'm like, my God, the Greens in Europe, Germany, they came out of the anti-nuclear movement, anti-nuclear power movement, and then anti-nuclear weapons. So, that's just really outside the bounds, I think, for us. But it keeps coming up because the nuclear industry is promoting it big time, and they're exporting them. I mean, we've talked on this podcast about the U.S. trying to export a nuke to Rwanda and now to Kenya when they're sitting there near the equator with all that solar power. It's just insane. But anyway, enough of that. I'm a no-nuker from way back.
But when they tell me that there's no nuclear waste that comes out and stays radioactive for thousands of years, then I'll say, let's take a look at nukes. That's the only way.
Yeah, well, we've got 75 years to figure out what to do with the nuclear waste. And you're right. It's around for longer than humanity has been around.
Right.
In a toxic form. So, waiting for the next question. Frankie Lee. Howie, do you think it's possible that the fix is in with the powers that be, that it's Trump's turn this time? Just being cynical. Well, I'll let you answer that too, Barry, but I'll just, since you addressed it to me, I'll say that, the capitalist power structure is split. Most of them are with the Democrats because Trump is unpredictable. He's a nutcase. They don't really know what they're going to get. They'd rather have stability and somebody they can work with and bribe, which they do with the Democrats, right, than a guy like Trump who's a loose cannon. That said, there are sectors, particularly on Wall Street and Silicon Valley, high tech, that are backing Trump. High tech because they think they can get what they want from Trump in terms of deregulation, particularly affecting their consolidation of social media platforms and artificial intelligence. And Wall Street because they don't want to pay taxes. Right. So some of them are looking at Trump, although I haven't seen an update on that since Biden left. And I'm curious as to whether Wall Street might say, let's go with stability, not chaos. But we'll see. So anyway, I think there's no, conspiracy or cabal there pulling the strings. The ruling class has its own divisions, and I think they're divided between the Democrats and Republicans. They don't have that much control. They control the big picture of, we got a government that answers to corporate needs in general, but I don't think they can manipulate elections that way. So I don't know, Barry, you want to comment on that?
Well, my as far as elections go, I could give you one industry that controls elections completely. The gas and oil industry, raising the price of gas, okay, at a whim, at a drop of a hat, can destroy a candidate, a presidential candidate, just by raising gas prices. So who's really in control here? You tell me. They're the ones in control, and until that's broken, it's more of the same as far as I'm concerned. I mean, where I live, it's big time Trump country. Sometimes it gets scary here to that point. But to me, you got one side that's sending arms to Israel to kill, to perform a genocide. And the other side, you have a lunatic who you don't know what he's going to do tomorrow. So as far as I'm concerned, either side is a no-win. The only win is the Green Party, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned fossil capital. They tend to support the Republicans, and Trump asked. He said, "Give me $1 billion in campaign contributions, and I'll do whatever you want."
Yeah,
I mean that's like he's giving the game away.
Yep.
So they have tended to back Republicans, and I haven't looked lately, but I wonder if the chaos versus stability question weighs with them. They have got a lot of what they wanted from the Biden administration. The Inflation Reduction Act is very pro-fossil fuels, and Biden signed off on that. And we know for the first 3 years of the Biden administration, compared to the Trump administration, Biden approved 50% more oil and gas drilling permits on public lands than Trump did.
Yep.
So, why switch horses if you're the oil and gas industry? But I don't know. I'd have to, see what they've been contributing lately to the 2 tickets. I think one thing I think would be a safe guess is they're giving more to Republican congressional candidates than the Democratic congressional candidates.
I would think.
Chris Blankenhorn, can you speak about running and organizing in rural/red areas? It's been abandoned by the Democrats and is a potential organizing opportunity for Greens. There's a lot of Green policies they agree with, but they only hear fear-mongering and hate from the GOP. Maybe you also meant the Democrats. All the Democrats say to rural America is Trump is, bad, but they don't hear why the Democrats are good for rural America. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, to me, you got to go grassroots. And part of it is, I'm running for Congress this year, but I've run for numerous positions, numerous times. And around Ocean County, my name is somewhat known and people know what you're about. And I think that's how you get your foot in the door with people. Those with an open mind will sit and listen and say, hey, that kind of makes sense. Maybe this is something we want to do, and maybe this is the way we want to go. All the way up, from local to county to state. I think people are starting to recognize here in New Jersey that it's a one-party system, that these guys all work together to put more money in their own pockets and neglect the needs of the people that are actually voting for them. Hopefully some of them wake up before it's too late, but there are those that are just, well, I'll tell you, a lot of the people that I see with the F Biden flags hanging from their house are people that are basically supporting hate. Okay. And to try to change hate is a difficult thing. All right. Anybody who is different than them, they hate. And that's hard to break through. But those that are somewhat open-minded, going door to door and talking to people locally and putting forward platforms that really are for the welfare of the people. Some people do wake up. I've come close a couple times locally here in winning the election, having a political boss controlling the machines in Tom's River. And I mentioned his name before, doesn't help things. But, and that particular person is an attorney who's been pulling, over $1 million from various towns here in Ocean County for years and years and years. So hopefully the people wake up, those that are somewhat open-minded, but you have to be out there and you have to run multiple times and you have to keep making noise. Even if I don't win, if I make noise and people hear the noise, eventually it will build. And eventually it's going to lead to changes. That's how I look at it. That's how I look at it.
And I would add that I think, it's easier to elect municipal candidates, county candidates.
Yeah.
But once you have a bench of people that have shown themselves to be effective, responsible, responsive, then it's easier to run for Congress and people know what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So I saw a question pop up. Dig Doug. Are Green Party members and candidates in New Jersey working together on campaigning, and what does that look like?
Right now, we've been working. I'm the elections chairman for the Green Party New Jersey, and I basically have been spending one word until when we had to have them in by 4:00 on Monday. The word has been petition signatures, and that's the only word that I knew up until Monday at 4:00. Now we go full blast. People have been on podcasts. I've been on a few podcasts myself, prior to this, when we were still putting together the Green 13 ticket. But now we go full blast in earnest campaigning. And I told everyone in an email last night, the switch is flipped. It's time to start campaigning, and we're all working together. And most of us, as I mentioned, either number one or number two, we're talking about Gaza and single payer health care. Transportation's up there too. but and immigration's in there. It's various, but we're all on this. We're all on the same working on the same platform, and we will be working together. Absolutely. And everybody knows everybody else. We're at this point, it's been long enough that we're kind of like family. And we have our spats.
Here's a question. What other policies do you want to speak about before we go?
Well, I'll tell you, I belong to another organization. I really can't say the name. It has to do with cancer. And we visit with our elected officials every year. And I had to visit with the person that I'm running against. Of course, I'm not working with that organization this year since I'm running against him. But the right, the ultra conservative platform that he puts forward goes against everything that, as far as I believe, what's supposed to be democracy and looking out for what the people believe in. As you know, to me, if I'm elected by the people, I should be representing what the people believe, and not, there might be personal beliefs of mine that, ethically I couldn't go against, but I'm supposed to be there representing the people of my district. And I don't believe in 44 years that the current congressman that I'm running against has done that. He basically has stressed his personal beliefs, his religious beliefs, etc. And the big word used to be the jihadists are forcing their religion on us. Well, as far as I'm concerned, this congressman has been forcing his religious beliefs on this district and the country for 44 years. And I think that's improper. And that's a big issue for me. On top of it, I'll say one other thing. If you represent New Jersey, you should live in New Jersey. And this congressman years ago, his children got in-state tuition in Virginia when they went to college, which to me says he doesn't really live in New Jersey. So anyway, just another point.
What committees is this guy on?
Oh, gosh. I think he's on the energy committee he's on. I'd have to look it up again. I have it in a spreadsheet. I didn't look at it recently, but he's if after 44 years, he was on the military committee, armed forces, etc. And he bucked George W. and they removed him from his committee head on that. So, I mean, I can't say everything bad about the man. He supports healthcare initiatives quite well, etc. But again, the infliction of your own personal beliefs, religious beliefs, etc., I find very difficult to accept.
You said he was bumped from the Armed Services Committee for taking on George W. Bush?
Yep. Years ago.
Over what?
They were cutting funds for veterans, I believe, and he went to bat, and they took him out of his committee head seat. Yeah.
Well, let me answer that question. What other policies do you want to speak to before we go? I think one of the huge issues that nobody's talking about seriously when it comes to the federal government is the new nuclear arms race. And the loss of these treaties. The U.S. pulled out of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty under George W. Bush, and then out of the
strategic arms.
No, we pulled out of the ABM Treaty, Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty under Bush, right. And then under Trump, under the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, on the excuse that the Russians were violating it. And they probably were, but you have the treaty and you should have stuck with it and, negotiated around that and made a big international issue of it. Instead, we got out of the treaty. So now both Russia and the U.S. are putting nukes close to each other. We're back to where we were in the early 1980s when we had the missile crisis, which is one of the things that generated the Green Party in Europe. And nobody's talking about this. Daniel Ellsberg wrote his book, The Doomsday Machine. I think it was about 2018. I tried to raise it when I ran for president. He had suggestions to initiate disarmament initiatives the U.S. should take, like, we don't need land-based nuclear missiles. They're just a target. They just make us a target.
Yep.
The submarine-based nukes are enough for a deterrent, and we could have a sufficient deterrent with far fewer nukes. We could take unilateral steps, like saying no first use. We're not going to use nukes first, only as a retaliation and deterrent, which we have never had as our policy. Russia's never had as its policy. China and India do. I mean, that's an issue, and it's something even Obama considered, but the hawks in the military-industrial complex scared him away from that. So there's a big issue there, and it's a life or death issue, and it's just not being discussed. The mass media doesn't bring it up with the major party candidates. We bring it up in some of our candidates as green candidates, but we don't have the media traction, particularly at the national level, that we could, although we can, and I've been arguing in congressional races. So I just want to say that we should be taking unilateral nuclear disarmament initiatives to a minimum deterrent, no first use, get rid of the land-based missiles, the air launch missiles too, the fighter jets, just take the nukes away from them. The submarines, are harder to spot, harder to deter, and that's sufficient for a deterrent, but it should all move toward that new treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons that over 100 nations have now signed on to. None of the nuclear powers have. I mean, this is where the U.S. should take the lead. And we're not only not taking the lead, it's not even being talked about. Right. So anyway, that's my.
We're coming up on the anniversary. Either we just passed or it's coming up the anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Like
in 3 days, yeah.
Yeah.
The 6th and the 9th of August. Yep.
Yep.
So it'd be a good occasion for a news release on that, Barry.
Okay.
You got time before the 6th.
There you go. Absolutely.
And I'd be willing to help you, write it, edit it, whatever. Because I think that's just an issue that it should be screaming at us. And it's like people, like the monkeys that don't hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil.
Yep. We'll put something together, that's for sure, because it's coming up. Today's what? Today's the 3rd. So 6 days, right?
Well, 3 days until Hiroshima. That's the 6th.
That's right, 3 days.
Nagasaki's the 9th.
Right. Got it. We will get on that. That's for sure. Because we like being here pretty much, and we don't want to be gone.
Yeah.
So.
And I see Chris just put in the chat a statement from my 2020 campaign: reverse the new nuclear arms race.
Yeah.
So there's some ideas there.
I know people that would work on that.
So here's a question, Gara Byrne. I wonder if that's the same Gara that's going by another last name. But anyway, so how does Tim Black think he's going to destroy the duopoly by making black men vote for Trump? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't get that one at all.
Well, Tim Black is a podcaster, African-American. Like a lot of those guys, they say outrageous stuff, I think, to get people talking about them and get people watching them. I know that Angela Walker, because he was talking about the 2020 campaign,
right?
Wrote to him personally saying, she's an African-American vice presidential candidate. Why don't he have her on and give our point of view? He didn't even have the respect to respond to her. So, my opinion of Tim Black is not very high. I don't follow him, so I'm a little surprised he's in that Black Men for Trump camp, which is a bizarre camp. That's like, black men for slavery.
Yeah. I don't understand how that works. But.
Well, I actually know some Black Trump supporters. For them, it's the cultural issues, abortion, particularly.
Yeah.
And, they're anti-gay rights. So that's what they're voting on. And they'll even tell you Trump is a fucking idiot.
Yes.
And he's a racist. But we care about abortion and, gay rights. So
wow.
that's why they vote for him.
Oh my goodness.
It's there are black churches that preach that stuff every Sunday.
Wow.
So that's where you get some of that. But even people in those churches, I know others who say, yeah, okay, I'm not with the abortion and homosexuality, but this guy's against us as black people. So
yes.
They just they pick their poison, I guess, from their point of view.
Well, he feels that, what was it, in Charlotte, North Carolina, where that woman got run over? There were good people on both sides. I'm sorry. I don't think anybody who's in the Nazi party is a good person. My opinion.
Yeah. He had a dinner with Nick Fuentes, open white supremacist.
Yeah.
And then his stuff about, talk about how crazy the podcast sphere is. Somebody sent me a clip of Jimmy Dore and who was he on with? Oh, the guy from the Revolutionary Black Network, Nick Cruz. And they were saying all this crap about Kamala Harris being Indian until she turned black a few years ago. I think Trump got it from them. That was the week before Trump went off on that idiotic, stuff. So I think the Greens actually, even though I do this podcast every week, we should be putting a lot more energy into getting into the mainstream media where more people read us. Podcasts, a lot of them, my podcast is no big deal. We get about 500 views a week, has maybe some influence in the green movement, but, that's not where you're going to reach the masses of voters in your own district. So there are ways to get into local media and be taken seriously. And I think that's where our media emphasis ought to be.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know, Garrett, what Tim Black is up to, but it doesn't sound like it's anything good.
Mm-mm.
Okay, Barry. Well, any last words for our people?
No, just, if you're in New Jersey this year, you can vote for a Green in any congressional district that you want, because we've got districts 1 through 12 covered. We've got our senatorial candidate, Christina Khalil, and Jill Stein is on the ballot. So you've got a straight line. You like the Greens, you can vote Green anywhere in New Jersey. Here in Congressional District 4, 44 years is a long time. I think I had just gotten out of college when he was first elected to Congress, and I just turned 67. So that's a long time. And I think it's time for a change here in Congressional District 4. Hope all the people listening who are in Congressional District 4 agree with me. Thanks very much, Howie, for the time.
Well, thank you for coming on. And I hope people will note the website. And you got to ask people to donate.
Yes.
So donate to Barry. We're not rich folks, but lots of little people can add up to a lot of money.
Yep.
So it really matters, and it demonstrates support. And the media, when they think, well, am I going to cover this guy? They're going to look and see if you're raising any money. So, help Barry get some attention.
Thanks, Howie.
And so I don't have a guest plan for next week. I think there's so much news to cover and comment on that we'll focus on questions and comments. And meanwhile, if you're a sports fan, enjoy the Olympics. Something good for a change. And although there's politics around that, maybe we could talk about that next week. And then we'll go back to, genocide in Gaza, imperialism, and all these occupied countries from Western Sahara to West Papua to Ukraine, and or domestic issues, the healthcare crisis, the housing crisis.
Yeah.
It's another issue that's not getting a lot of attention. We got more homelessness because people can't afford the damn rent.
Yep.
The rent is too damn high. So we can talk about those things and whatever you want to next week. Meanwhile, have a good week, and thanks for being here. We'll be here next week at the same time.
Stay safe, everyone.